All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us. I am Tava Hoppy. I work for Nebraska Children under the Communities for Kids initiative. Just a couple of housekeeping items right off the bat. Please place your questions in the chat and we'll have some time at the end where we will answer those. There will be a Spanish and English versions of the RFP, which is something that we will go over in this presentation. Those will be posted on the C4K website Monday, February 27th. This slideshow will be available on the C4K website, and also the recording of the February 23rd webinar will be posted on the website as well. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we're going to go ahead and get started.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katrina Hurley, and I'm also an Assistant VP for the C4K team. And I would like to welcome you to our webinar, Nebraska Children and Families Foundation's Communities for Kids initiative, through its proud partnership with the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services and the American Plan Rescue Act, is excited to announce the second round of funding to communities and childcare professionals across Nebraska that will assist in expanding capacity of high-quality early learning programs. Today, we're going to go over the highlights of the project, including an overview, timeline, allowable expenditures, and how to apply.
This is the official statement that includes the legislative bill number, name, and number of the congressional act. You will see this statement on everything that we put out about the funding. And if you're chosen to be a contractor for these funds, it will also be on all of your materials as well.
This project is solely focused on increased childcare capacity, especially in areas of high need. To be eligible for funding, providers must be starting a new program or expanding their current one to serve more children. Please only apply if you plan to meet this criteria. Applicants can be a community, individual childcare program, or business seeking to incorporate childcare. Applicants will be required to show that they can increase full day, full year licensed childcare capacity for the 0 to 5 population. These funds can either go to a community working with many childcare programs or an individual childcare program. Applicants must be willing to participate in the Step Up to Quality program and develop a plan to reach Step 3 or higher. They must also register on the Child Care Referral Network, often called the CCRN, and must be willing to sign a contract with DHHS to accept children who qualify for child care subsidy.
This project is on an accelerated timeline, which means there's a very limited time to spend a large amount of funds. We need your proposals by March 24th. Contract announcements will be made May 15th, and the contract period is July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. All of the funding must be spent in that contract period. There will be no carryover of funds past that date. It is also important to note that any program that participates must be open, operating, and accepting children no later than June 30th of 2024. Technical assistance to support your projects will be provided by Communities for Kids staff.
We will contract with a minimum of 9 and a maximum of 12 entities based on the funding amount in this chart. For example, if a single childcare provider applied and would be able to increase their license capacity to between 51 to 75 children, they'd be eligible for a $300,000 contract. If one community applied with plans to open 3 new family childcare home ones serving 8 to 10 children, they'd be eligible for a $150,000 contract because they'd be serving 3 providers at that $50,000 threshold. Applicants are welcome to mix and match different types of providers in your applications.
To apply, you will be asked to complete a request for proposal, which will be available on our website. The request for proposal will need to include the summary form, a written proposal outlining your project, and a completed budget for the funds request form. All documents will need to be emailed to Nebraska Children Communities for Kids by March 24th at 5 p.m. As mentioned earlier, C4K will make all required forms available on our website. All of these documents are required for your proposal to be considered for selection. Family home projects must include a pre-inspection report to verify that the renovations being requested are needed to be licensed or increase capacity. The email to send all of your completed forms to is c4kinfo@nebraskachildren.org.
To have a complete application, you must turn in the proposal summary form as shown here. This form will allow the reviewers to see a brief summary of your program before they read your 4-page proposal. We ask that you put whether or not you're an individual or organization applying, what geographic area your program will be serving, and how many projects total you will be completing. We then ask that you identify whether your program is a new and not yet licensed program or a program with a current license that is expanding your capacity. There is a location for you to identify who will be the program's fiscal sponsor and who to contact if the funding is being offered to your program. Lastly, you'll need to show what funds you're requesting from ARPA and how much total overall cost of the expansion project. This form needs to be completed in its entirety and be submitted with the rest of your proposal.
Once the request for proposals and documents are submitted by the listed deadline, proposals will be reviewed by a team of internal Nebraska Children's staff and other external partners. They will be looking to fund projects that will range across the state and will be equal and equitable for both in-homes and centers. Once this review is complete, Nebraska DHHS will make the final selections for contract awards. 9 to 12 proposals will be selected for contracts, and we plan to announce the recipients on May 15th, 2023 via email.
There will be a limited list of allowable expenditures due to the funding source, which includes but are not limited to construction and renovation costs, which includes materials and labor, classroom equipment, materials and curriculum, staff wages, payroll taxes and benefits, workforce recruitment and hiring activities, marketing and advertising, and staff training fees. Wages can only be spent on eligible employees who have passed the child care criminal history check. Programs will be asked to show that their employees have passed the required checks in order to be reimbursed for their wages.
For non-allowable expenses, these can include expenses not directly tied to increased capacity, food, disposable items such as soap, hand sanitizer, paper towels, wipes, diapers, and cleaning supplies. Also, consumable items, except office supplies and/or classroom supplies such as crayons. Any equipment expenses costing $5,000 or more for a single item will also not be allowed unless special permission prior to spending is granted. However, it will be very difficult to gain this permission, so that's why we advise to stay under the $5,000. In order to help guide you with creating budgets for expenses, a list of allowable and non-allowable expenses will be provided on our FAQ page, which will be accessible on the C4K website.
So today was our last webinar, but we'll be starting a frequently asked questions page on the C4K website, and we'll be posting last night's webinar discussing this topic with the Spanish version recording at the shown link as well.
Okay, with that brief overview, please note we need to get started right away. Here's another look at that timeline. As you can see, getting starting on this as soon as possible would be ideal. We will now open up the floor for questions. Go ahead and feel free to put them in the chat. You may also unmute yourself to ask your questions.
Regarding staff wages, I know it says a criminal history background check. If the employee is not over the age of 18, like we have a couple high school girls that work for us, is that allowable?
So we just ask you to follow your licensing regulations. And so if we're going to be reimbursing the wages, they have to be allowed to work with children. So passing those background checks, although not the fingerprint ones.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
There's a question in the chat from Heather, and it says, does this include new construction, a new building on currently owned land, or an addition to a current building? This would apply for that. The only thing is it has to be in relation to increasing capacity. So if you don't have a license or you do, it would have to increase.
I believe Teresa also had a question about storm shelters.
Oh,
A little bit further up.
does this include a storm shelter? If that's a hard one, and I appreciate you asking it. I think it would depend on if it's in direct correlation to increasing capacity.
As some of the storm shelters are needed to increase your capacity, especially in the Omaha region, we just request that you have a pre-inspection done stating that you need to have this done in order to expand your capacity. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so everyone can see themselves.
Right. Carla has a question. Did I understand right that if you are going from a home 1 to a home 2, you can receive up to $50,000?
Yes, that is correct. If you're moving anywhere between 2 up to 12 children, you're qualified for that up to $50,000 or $50,000.
I would just like to add to that, particularly for those that are looking at an increase and expansion of capacity from a family home 1 to a 2 or family home 2 to a center. One of the things our partners at HHS are very much asking us to do is to have documentation from a fire marshal or a licensing specialist that indicates the need for that construction needing to be done in order to expand. So just making sure that that was very clear.
So it looks like we have another one in the chat with Heather's question about new construction. We are looking at building a new center. We have a before and after school age program, but are wanting to build a center for younger kids. Does that qualify? Yes, we are specifically looking at that 0 to 5 population. And so that would definitely qualify for this funding.
So I'm potentially looking at increasing our preschool, but then tying a daycare in with it. Would that qualify?
As long as you'll be serving the 0 to 5, then yes, that would qualify.
If I wouldn't add the daycare, but I'd still have it as the preschool and the home-based, so that's 0 to 3, but then obviously as a preschool too, would that qualify?
So you're looking at expanding only the preschool side of it then?
Potentially, but that would be from 3 to 5, not the birth to 3. But we do a home-based service that we have in people that go out to home-based to provide those services home-based, that we would do have a portion of our building available for that as well.
I can take that, Katrina. Jess, a good question. What these funds have to absolutely go for is 0 to 5 full day, full year. And
Okay.
so preschool, if it's a traditional preschool, we could not put any of the funds towards capacity building for kind of a traditional part day, part year preschool. However, if you're increasing your licensing capacity for children in the 0 to 5 range, even if it is 3 to 5, then you could apply for these funds.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
Molly also had that question. She asked, is this funding only for daycare or could it be used to start a preschool? Molly, I hope Marty covered your question, and to reiterate, if it's in the traditional if it's in the traditional sense, then we could not, but if it is full daycare, then we could.
And then it looked like Andrea's asked if fire marshals are qualified as pre-inspectors. We were just informed that we need to have in-homes have a pre-inspection report saying that they need to do the expansion or that they need to do the remodel or construction to expand their capacity. But if you can also have a fire marshal come in and do a pre-inspection just to make sure that what you're asking is needed, if you need an extra firewall or fire exit. And then it did look like someone said this second round of funding has opened up for remodels and construction. That's the same as the first round. As long as the building is already purchased and owned, you can remodel as long as you are expanding capacity. That's what the entire funding is looking at.
Is there a threshold on how many children have to be entered into the expansion by that June 30th date? Is there like a percentage that you're looking for, or does the building just have to be open and operating?
So you have to just be open and operating and accepting children. We know that not everybody's wait list is going to be as long as other people's, but we're just trying to decrease the amount of slots that are needed in the state of Nebraska. And then Marty, I don't know if you wanted to take this question from the chat. It says, do programs that following Rule 11 qualify for these funds?
Sure, absolutely. Hi, Erica. Good question. So yes, if they are also licensed. And so if it's a program that is following Rule 11 within a school or part of a school program, and also licensed by Department of Health and Human Services, then they absolutely would qualify.
Thanks.
And then it looks like we have another one in the chat that's asking if they're expanding from 40 to 55 kiddos and what funding amount you would qualify for. And so that would be in the 15 range. So that'd be the 13 to 24, which is up to the $135,000. And then we have another one that says, would this work to purchase a building to start a daycare? And no, we can't purchase the building or purchase the lot. You'd already have to have that purchased, but you can build from the ground up with these funds.
I would just say that it's not necessarily a prerequisite that you already have to have the building purchased. Like you could still be in the process of purchasing it. We just couldn't use these funds to purchase it. So if you don't have a building bought yet or land bought yet, you could use other funds for that and then build with these funds on top of that.
And then Julie asked if for remodels, do plans need to have prior approval from the state? For the in-homes, we are asking that you do have a pre-inspection, either done by your licensing agent or someone within DHHS, so that way then they can tell you for sure whether or not you need the expansion. But the other ones, we just ask that you're doing the research and making sure that what you're doing is going to be allowed by your city. And then there's some more in here. One from Dalton saying that if we are a new center and not yet open, but looking to open June 2023, can we still qualify, or would we need to be expanding and opening during the contract period? And I believe it is during that contract period. So you would have to be expanding from that July 1st to June 30th of 2024.
I'm going to add there, Dalton, if you haven't already, I strongly encourage you to look at the Department of Health and Human Services Business Partnership Capacity Building Grants. They have a similar process to us, although they're not allowing any kind of remodel or construction pieces. But that could be a good avenue if you've not already looked at that. They're open currently and accepting kind of rolling applications. And so if you don't have that, one of us will drop that. Geez, I'm having trouble today. Drop that link in the chat for anybody that's interested, that's planning to absolutely be open by the end of 2023.
And then following up with that, Cassandra asked if we have applied for the expansion partnership grant that has just been released. Are we allowed to apply for this one as well? And yes, I believe you can, and we would strongly encourage you to.
Just making sure that you're not asking to double bill for what you're applying for ARPA versus what you're applying for the DHHS business grant.
Yes, thank you, Katrina.
And then April put in the chat, for our community, we have the land, we have the quotes for the building materials, a design and bids on electrical. The size of the building would be 35 to 40 kids with this work to build with these funds. Yes, absolutely. And then Andrea Thomas asked if they could be renting the building. And I believe that's allowed, Noelle, is that correct?
Yes, yep.
And then do centers leasing space qualify to apply? Yes. And then I think that's all in the chat. Does anyone else have any other questions they want to come off of mute for?
So these have been really awesome questions and we appreciate it. And hopefully any question that you ask can hopefully help somebody else that might be thinking the same thing.
I just have a quick question on the funding amount. So we would actually be, we have the piece of ground purchased. So we're going to put 2 in-home 2s on it. So for a total of 24 children, and it would be a completely new license. What was the amount for that? I jumped on a little late.
So for 2 family home 2s, you would be qualified for up to $100,000, $50,000 for both.
Okay, thank you. Would we need to submit 2 applications then?
Nope, you can submit underneath of a multi-project. So on that RFP page, we'll be uploading all these documents Monday at noon onto our website, and it'll show where you can select whether or not you're an organization that's doing multiple projects or if you're just going to be doing one.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
And then it looks like iPhone has a question.
Oh, this is Teresa. My question is, the only thing that I did not qualify for the first round is because my house does not have a storm shelter. So when she just answered the lady's question, if she can apply, if I don't get this other second round, then it's gonna knock me out the first round again. Because that's the only way I'm gonna be able to increase is by the second round, because the first round won't allow a new structure. So I cannot not apply, or can I apply, or what can I do? I don't know what to do at this point.
So Teresa, do you already have an in-home license already?
Yes, I'm a 1 at this time.
Okay, and you're looking to move to a 2, but you have to have a storm shelter then?
Yes, because when I tried to do the process the first time, that was the only thing that stopped me. When I went to city planning zoning, they told me that I had to have the storm shelter. But then when I went back and looked on the paperwork, online, it says no new construction.
Are you talking about for the DHHS grant? Did you apply there?
Right.
Okay.
Well, I didn't get to because I couldn't, because the part stopped me with the zoning. That was the only thing that was stopping my paperwork.
Okay, so this one's different. So we are allowing new construction with ARPA funding. And so you can apply for this and especially since your city has stated that you cannot expand capacity without that storm shelter. So you could use the funds for that.
But my question is, if I apply for that, I can, when she asks if she can apply for the first grant, the first round, right? If I apply for that first round and just say that they give it to me before you guys know what's going on, they said that they'll make you pay that money back.
Yeah, that's correct.
Mm-hmm. So I don't, go ahead.
Oh, our application is due March 24th, and we are making announcements May 15th. I do know that the DHHS one is a rolling basis. So if you are selected, you would still have some time in there to spend those funds before the DHHS one closes. Okay.
And then the other question I had, when you do the inspection, you said that the DHS and the fire marshal and the inspector needs to inspect my house.
So you just need one pre-inspection by your licensing agent. We do prefer that you do ask your fire marshal to make sure that the changes are needed and that you're adding into your budget what you need to add for the fire marshal. But definitely if you're an in-home, we do need to have that DHHS licensing pre-inspection.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And then it looks like a different iPhone has their hand raised. If you wanted to come off mute.
Hi, is there any way you can put the slide back up that shows the amount of increased capacity with the amount of dollars
Yes, I
associated?
can.
Thank you.
And these slides will be put on our website too. So if you ever want to come back and look at these later on, you can go to our C4K website and this will be in the slides.
It will also be in all of the informational packets as well for your application, so you can reference it while you're filling out the application. These are all really great questions. Does anyone have any others? Alrighty, if there's none other questions, I'd like to thank you guys all for joining our webinar. And if you guys do have any other questions after this has ended, you can always email the C4K info email that we'll also be posting up on our website for your access.
Okay, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. Good luck on all your proposals.